This is an opportunity where we had to get in touch with what I think is a very esteemed panel, people that I have tremendous respect for in what they do and how they do it, to get their insights into everything in the wake of this PGA Championship. If you compare, it's interesting, really, to me, if you compare the Masters of 2025, where after that Masters, the talk was 100% about Rory McIlroy and his achievement not only in winning the Masters, but a career Grand Slam. After this PGA Championship, and you can see we are focusing a lot of our time on Scottie Scheffler with merit, there are other stories and other storylines, if you please, that are circulating in the wake of this PGA Championship. So we're trying to sort all that out. I am curious as to why that is happening by comparison, and we'll go down that road as we continue. The panel that we have assembled for you, let's start first of all with Arron Oberholser. Arron is a winner on the PGA Tour. He's a winner on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's an analyst for Golf Channel, was working for us this past week at the PGA Championship. He has 165 starts on the PGA Tour. Emilia Doran is with us. She's was working for ESPN Plus this past week as a golf analyst. She's working for us this week at the Women's NCAA Golf Championships, which was very exciting. It's going to be concluding very soon. She is 2023 NCAA champion in her own right, Wake Forest alum, a four-time All-American, two-time Pan Am gold medalist. And then working for ESPN last week was Geoff Ogilvy, major champion, of course, the 2006 U.S. Open champion, eight-time winner on the PGA Tour, 411 starts on the PGA Tour in 57 career top tens. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. Emilia, let's jump in, first of all, with you and get started in the deep end. What impressed you most about this victory by Scottie Scheffler?
Oh, Scottie's mind was unbelievable. He talks about it all the time, staying patient. He kind of has those similar lines he gives no matter what kind of question someone is asking him. He always talks about taking it shot by shot, staying in the moment, head. He did that at the PGA Championship like nothing I've ever seen. You could tell by the way after he made his putt at the end, tapped in, hugged Fred Scott, and then there was that extra moment 30 seconds after where he just gave a double fist bump.
Yeah, he spiked his hat into the green after that victory, Emilia. It was very impressive indeed. So, Arron, when you think about Scottie Scheffler and the array of talents that he has, is his mind the strongest?
I don't think there's any question that it's the strongest in the game. It reminds me, Frank Nobilo, I got to give Frank Nobilo a lot of credit during the broadcast. He said something, rarely a broadcaster says something that makes me go, wow, that is absolutely perfect. And Frank brought in another sport. We like to compare, I think, our athletes to at times to other athletes in other sports and how great other athletes are in their particular sport. And Frank brought up Pete Sampras. And I've toggled back and forth in our own sport between Jack Nicklaus and Tiger as far as the mindset that Scottie has. And I would say that that Frank nailed it as far as when you're talking about an athlete. He's not quite Jack Nicklaus. He's Tiger Woods in some aspects, but I thought Sampras was an absolute nailed it on the head with Pete Sampras. Just that quiet, deadly confidence that Scottie shows. Jack was almost, he was real steely, but he was almost, in a way, almost too calm. Scottie does show a tiny bit of emotion here and there, not as much as Tiger. And I thought the Sampras comparison was absolutely perfect. And so when I thought about Sampras and watching him play tennis when I was a kid, and now I watched Scottie play golf, I thought that was a wonderful comparison. But that's the mindset that I think that he has. And if anybody out there ever watched Sampras in his heyday, people will realize how unbelievably spot on that is.
So, Geoff, to this point, when Scottie was in the middle part of his round, before he hit that brilliant tee shot at 10, which he followed up with another brilliant tee shot at 11, but prior to that, kind of a rocky first 9. By my count, there was 6 to 8 shots that he missed, and in some ways, fortune smiled on him that he was able to get a club behind the ball after those particular shots. What was it like for you watching that, knowing what he was talking about earlier in the soundbite that we played for everyone about being in, as he called it, the arena?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like a hallmark of his whole week, really. We did so much talk before the tournament about Rory and maybe Bryson, and you had to be long to win this tournament. And is Scottie there? He just shot 31 under at Dallas playing unbelievable golf, and he struggled all week, really, which is the most impressive win, really, probably by Scottie, probably why we're talking about him so much. He didn't have normal Scottie golf, but he found a way to get it around. And it was a very big contrast playing with Rory and Xander. All 3 of them were struggling the first Thursday, Friday, but Scottie somehow found his way to get it to 5 under par after 2 rounds and stay in the tournament, whereas the other 2 didn't. And then Sunday, the first 9 holes was very similar to Thursday, Friday. He was struggling to hit the ball straight, really. He made a great birdie on 2 from the left trees, but it was a struggle for him. But the genius, I think, to Scottie, what I think a lot of people miss is how simple he can keep it. I mean, we talk about it, but it's almost impossible to play golf out on tour, as Arron will tell you, that when you start losing your golf swing a little bit and the ball's going a little bit sideways, to not sort of dig into some sort of mechanics and try to work it out. He just seems to just have the patience to wait it out, keep it simple, just keep doing the same thing, knowing that it's all going to work out at some point. It's incredible.
To that point of simplicity, Geoff, I want you guys to hear this quote about, and this came from the press conference afterwards, Scottie, where he was talking about Coach Randy Smith. Let's start with this.
Hey, Scottie, over here on your right. Congratulations. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about your relationship with Randy. And then I'm curious, too, what maybe the best coaching tip he's ever given you is.
I would say, Randy, he's taught me since I'm 7 years old. And so, I can't imagine what that's like from his end. As far as I'm concerned, he's just, he's the one who teaches me how to swing it. And, he's pretty much the only guy I consult when it comes to that kind of stuff. And, he's a bit of a crazy person at times, but he's pretty much a savant when it comes to teaching me the golf swing. And, he's a pretty special guy as well. And, I'm thankful for what he's taught me in the game of golf and in life as well. I felt like Randy always did. I mean, it's hard to really boil it down to one thing, but I felt like throughout the entire time he taught me, he always did a really good job of helping us all stay patient. I think especially when you're as competitive, I think, as I am, when you're younger and things aren't going the way they're supposed to, Randy always did a really good job of reminding me that it was a long journey to become good at golf. You're going to have ups and downs, and I kind of fought my body for a while there in college, fought some growth spurts in high school, and I wasn't always the best player. I always felt like I could be the best player, but I was a good junior player, a good amateur player, and I did a good job kind of rising up the ranks and in professional golf. And Randy was always right there by my side, helping me stay patient and teaching me little things along the way.
So, Arron, when you hear that quote from Scottie, you just heard Geoff talking about simplicity in his approach in his golf swing so that he can find it during these times of extremely high pressure. How imperative is it for the best of the best to not leave necessarily their fingerprint upon a golfer's swing, although I think that's natural anyways, but that's not their number one agenda. Their number one agenda is for a player to own their own swing just for these situations. How important is it what Randy did?
I think that's everything. I think the best instructors or teachers or coaches, well, let's get one thing straight. I believe there's a difference between an instructor and a coach. Mm-hmm. I think that we have lots of good instructors on the PGA Tour who are very technically proficient in teaching the right angles, if you will, about the golf swing and where you need this club to be at this point and all the, P1, if you're into that sort of thing. We have a lot of those guys. And there are a lot of guys that fit that mold as players, point A to point B type, understanding the swing in that regard, I should say. Kind of mechanics, if you will. And then you have the ultimate field players. And some field players can look very mechanical, but they're not. Scottie is the ultimate field player. You would never teach that move. You wouldn't. That's something that he developed on his own. And to Randy's credit, he said, this is who he is. This is how his body moves. This is his swing DNA. And I'm not going to mess with his swing DNA because, quite honestly, it's really your body's DNA. How your body wants to move is how your body wants to move. And that's Scottie's interpretation of what a great golf swing is. It's Randy's job, and he's done a marvelous job at it, in basically honing that, refining it over the years, and making sure that Scottie stays on the right track and understands that what he's got is good enough. And obviously it's more than good enough because, to Geoff's point, he did not have his A stuff and he won by 5 shots. So you're not going to mess with greatness and almost a savant level of greatness that Scottie has with his golf swing. He's got the greatest face control in the game. That used to belong to Colin Morikawa, I would say, and Colin still got great face control. But Scottie's club face is so square for so long through the golf shot that he almost doesn't have an opportunity to hit it crooked in a lot of spots. And again, that's kudos to Randy for not messing with the secret sauce in his golf swing, but just refining it, understand how it works, why it works, and just leaving it alone and working on the little things that are going to get him back to where he needs to be with that swing.
What's amazing to me is that the game of golf constantly provides bridges from the past into the future. And to your point, Arron, where you're talking about what I call face awareness, some of the greatest at face awareness to me all time, for example, was like Lee Trevino, Nick Price comes to mind. But when you think about the fact that Lee Trevino has been around Scottie Scheffler since he was a little boy, can you imagine that? Isn't that interesting how we have one more tether like that? Emilia, before we take a break here, I want to ask you about that too. The importance of having a coach that, through letting you own your golf swing, instills in you a confidence that then obviously you have the ability to carry that game as far as you choose.
Oh, it's so critical. And you think about players themselves that love to tinker. I remember when Jason Day got to #1 in the world in 2015, he wanted to do things to try and get even better. Lydia Ko on the women's side, she's become #1 in the world, changing her swing, coaches, clubs. Max Homa, he's been going through a lot of changes, changing everything pretty much all in one moment. Scottie Scheffler has done such an unbelievable job at getting to the #1 player in the world and not tinkering, not changing things. It's so easy because these players are so smart. They're so just knowledgeable in the golf swing. They want to get better, continue to separate themselves. In addition to coaching, coaches are trying new things. They're trying to get their players better, one step better. Maybe they have a thought, they want to experiment on a player, and Coach Randy Smith doesn't do that. It's so interesting when you think about coaches and caddies and how they have to act so much as almost a sports psychologist. I feel anyone who's going into that industry now, they better be getting a psych degree. And that's what Scottie said. Randy really helps him stay patient out there. It's something that Scottie says all the time, but it's so hard to actually do in a tournament setting. That's why all these sayings are cliches, because when a player finally figures it out, it's still just the basics, staying patient shot by shot, but it's so freaking hard to manage. So when you have a team by your side that's able to help you with that, how you talk to yourself on the golf course, it's so critical.
Geoff, do you think that perhaps there's too much pressure to tinker with one's golf swing instead of hopefully having a coach or people around you that can instill the confidence that what you have is enough, go work on that?
I don't know about pressure, but the culture of the game is incredibly, the technical side of the game is incredibly magnetic when you just turn on your computer in the morning and you've seen YouTube swing videos. It's flooded the internet. The range on tour is gadgets and coaches and TrackMan, and it's been there. Since golf began, I think people have been digging and sort of trying to work a better way out to do this game. But I think Scottie, I've watched a lot of golfers play for a long time. Scottie, to me, I don't know what's in his head. Obviously, I would have played better if I did, but he seems more intent on the target and less intent on his swing than anyone I've ever seen play at the highest level. I think
Fascinating.
partly why I think his body, he'll let his body do whatever it has to do to let the ball go to the target. And I think the lesson I think these young kids out there can learn, and all of us golfers can learn, is when you watch Scottie play, he's so intent. All he cares about, he remembers the mission. The job at golf is to have the lowest score. He seems only focused on the lowest score. I want to hit the ball where I'm looking at. I'm going to hit. I don't care how I do that. I want to hit the ball from here to here, then there to there, and I want to have the lowest score. And he happens to be the best ball striker on tour with somebody who doesn't tinker and play and mess around with technique. Everything he works on is to hit the ball where he's looking. And I think it's very easy when you play golf to hit a couple offline and say, why did that happen? Or I didn't rotate my forearms, or I need to get the ground forces working a little bit better. But Scottie doesn't seem to think that way. He's like, I just want to hit the next one straighter than I hit the last one. And I think the byproduct of that is such a square club face, such an understanding of where the ball is going, because he's not trying to manipulate the club face. He's letting it point towards the target at all times because his mind is only thinking about the target. At least that's my read from the outside. And I think that's why he can ride out these bad patches on the golf course, because he doesn't dig into technique. He just continues to keep trying to hit it at the target. Gets to a point in the golf tournament where it's really important. His competitive nature takes over. Like the last 5 holes on Saturday were just outrageous level of golf that he played. Same thing on Sunday. It was just that intent on, I know what the job is. The job is to have the lowest score I can, and that means I just want to hit the ball where I'm aiming, and that's all I need to think about. To me, that's what I feel when I watch Scott Scheffler play.
Incredible stuff. We will continue with our panel right after this break, folks. And there are some pathways that I'm curious about going down. I'm curious if Quail Hollow as a venue has been treated fairly in the wake of this PGA Championship, and to get them to weigh in accordingly on that. And what about some other names? What about Jon Rahm? What about Bryson DeChambeau? All of that and more coming up in the Fairways of Life show. Our panel is Arron Oberholser, Emilia Doran, and Geoff Ogilvy. So, Geoff, do you want to do more TV? Are you thinking about going in that direction?
I don't know. I really enjoy weeks like last week. ESPN do an amazing job, and they have it from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. I mean, they do a lot of broadcasting last week. And the SportsCenter stuff. I enjoy talking about golf, but if you gave me a choice to play golf or talk about it, I'd still rather play golf. But we'll see. I mean, I enjoy it when I get to do it.
Emilia, I think that you are an absolutely fresh voice in the industry. I love your work. You're doing a brilliant job. So continue to believe and continue to forge forward, because we really appreciate it. And we appreciate your time, as you guys just realized in the commercial break, that all of you are getting up bright and early on the West Coast for us this morning.
Yeah, no, I'm here in La Costa for the Women's NCAA Championships. I'm staying for the men, and thank you so much. It's been a really fun journey. I decided after playing golf at Wake Forest that I didn't want to play professionally, as Arron and Geoff know, and have Geoff's continuing to be playing. It's such a grind out there, and I've been fortunate now to get to cover a lot of players that I grew up playing with that are fresh on the PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, cover some on the Korn Ferry as well. It's been so enjoyable just to get to watch from an outside perspective on how these players handle the pressure, how they handle the journey of professional golf, the time it takes. It's really made more emotionally mature as a player myself. I still play in some amateur events, but also it's just really exciting and fun to see these players come down a stretch and see their highs and the lows as a player.
Well, your poise and your ability to describe what you're looking at, whether it's a medium of radio or a medium of television, is something that makes it better for all of us consuming the product. And Arron, you already know, you're my friend. You're a rock with all this. I love hearing your insights. Love that you were continuing part of it. I was smiling as Geoff was saying to us, you know, I've never known a player that's traded a 5-iron for one of these, but you're doing a yeoman's job at it, working very, very hard. I thought I would pick up with you with this first question. Quail Hollow. They have hosted big events before. PGA Tour with regularity, Truist Championship as it's called now, for years. major championships in the PGA previously, President's Cup, etc. Is Quail Hollow, in the wake of this PGA Championship, being treated fairly in the retrospect and review of the course?
Well, I think, as Geoff knows, being an architect himself, golf courses are like art. I think that everybody's going to have a different take on it. When you look at a painting on the wall, I might see something that someone else doesn't, so on and so forth. As far as Quail Hollow is concerned, I think it's a fantastic golf course, honestly. Can you always be tweaks here and there to make it better, or if someone has a different idea to do this to this hole or that to that hole? Sure. I mean, we could sit here and pick apart any golf course in the world, quite honestly, because once again, it's art. So I think that to a certain extent, people who might not understand golf course architecture or might not understand shot values, or understand what major championship golf looks like, I can understand that everybody wants a little something different. I remember some guys online this week complaining that they wanted to see the bank on 15 shaved, the bank on 14 shaved left, bring in that water into play. And I mean, I understand their points, but I think one year actually when I played the Truist, we did have the bank shaved on 14, and maybe Geoff remembers that because we were playing at the same time. And good luck if you bail right. There's a reason why they have that right bail area. If you shave that bank on 14, you might not ever make it to 15T. So I don't know. I like the golf course the way it is. I was a medium length hitter on the PGA Tour. I found success at Quail Hollow and didn't have a problem with the way it was back then. They've made some tweaks to it. I think it's really good now, and I think it'll stand up to the best players in the world. And the best player in the world won this week, and he won by 5. So I think that says a lot about the golf course.
All right, so Geoff, let's jump in on this and see who's quoting you multiple times in that. Art is in the eye of the beholder. Is this splash art? Is this a Mona Lisa, or is this impressionist?
Wow. It's not the Mona Lisa, but there's only one of those, right? I think people get a bit caught up sometimes. I mean, golf course architecture or how people feel about it is 100% subjective. There's really no objectivity to the golf course aspect. I mean, you either like it or you don't. I mean, I would argue that the great golf courses in the world all have sort of similar hallmarks and similar sort of things underlying why they're so great. But a golf course venue, especially for a major, for a tournament, it has to tick a lot of boxes. It has to be a big venue. You need room for all the stuff, all the stands, all the TV compounds, to get all the people in and out. It needs to be long enough to be able to test the best golfers in the world, and not many of the great ones are really long enough anymore, really. And as to Arron's point perfectly, you really would like it to find the best golfer. And if the measure of a golf course is that it finds the number one golfer in the world winning by 5, I think it ticks the box for a perfect tournament venue, really. I think it was really interesting. The shot, we did so much talk before the tournament about only long hitters can win there. And Scottie's long enough, but we were talking Rory, Bryson, really are the only 2 guys who had a chance to win the tournament. And it proved to be totally false. And it played long as well. I mean, the ball was kind of plugging. As we heard, there was some organic matter on the balls. I think the first couple of days that was the talk of the tournament. But the course played really long. There was long rough. But the best ball striker and the best golfer in the world won the tournament. And that's all you can really ask for. I mean, I don't think it's not fair to compare these tournament venues to Pine Valley and Cypress Point, because they're just not trying to be that. And they're never going to be that. And that doesn't matter. I mean, there can only be one best golf course in the world, So I think if you ask, is Quail Hollow a great venue for a major tournament? I would say yes.
And then, of course, you have the likes of Denny McCarthy and Joe Highsmith finishing high on the leaderboard, too, which just goes to your point of different ways of getting it done. I want to ask you guys about I'll call it the Irish goodbye. We saw Shane Lowry on Friday fail to make the cut after his ball found its way into what looked like his ball was below the surface of the earth, but an eyewitness said, apparently a reporter, no, that pitch mark that your ball is in was not yours. It settled into that one. He was not granted relief. And then there was Rory McIlroy and all of the, I'll call it misunderstanding about his driver being ruled non-conforming. The edge of that debate was only blunted slightly because we found out that Scottie Scheffler's driver was also deemed to have failed in that testing. Let's hear first of all from Scottie Scheffler, then I'm going to get a reaction from you folks.
Was your driver one of the ones tested this week?
Yeah.
And did you have to make any change?
Yeah.
And how did that go? Did that have anything to do with hitting it left today?
No, I think that was my fault. No, so the driver testing is something that regularly happens on tour. My driver did fail at the beginning of this week. We had a feeling that it was going to be coming because I had used that driver for over a year. And so I was kind of fortunate for it to last that long, I felt like. And I would argue that if we're going to test the drivers, we need to be even more robust in the way we test them. And that was a conversation I had with one of the rules officials is I think if it's something that we're going to take seriously, I feel like we're almost going kind of halfway with it right now, where if we're going to test only a third of the field, I mean, if we're going to do it right, leave it up to us as players like the rest of the rules in the game of golf are. This is just, it's a newer rule that we haven't quite gotten right yet. And I think we have some stuff to figure out. And I think if we're going to do it, we might as well do it right and get even more robust, even more strict. And you can test guys every week if you want. I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't.
All right, let's go around the bases on this. Emilia, do you agree with what Scottie said?
Yeah. Why not be more robust? I felt a little skeptical as to why they were just testing before a major. I feel like don't know how often they test. Scottie seemed to say that they should be testing every week. Not quite sure if that's totally needed. It was very interesting just to learn a little bit more about that. And obviously Rory kind of got blasted and before people knew that everyone's drivers were getting tested. But yeah, I feel like having that kind of testing the week leading up to a major for these guys, it's the most important week and your driver to be adjusted. I feel like that can be a bit rattling. So that's kind of my take. Driver testing.
All right. So, Arron, is this a case of, if you're going to check 30, check the field, and is this also a case of transparency? And if a driver has failed, don't keep it secret so it doesn't leak out and it doesn't look like there's some form of impropriety because it's impossible for a player to know?
I'll take the first one. I think logistically testing 156 drivers every week. Now, that's not field sizes every week. Obviously, they vary throughout the year of the PGA Tour, and we're going to go to smaller ones potentially next year, but which might make it more logistically compatible with the testing on a weekly basis. But I think that it's a tricky subject. I think with the drivers. 1 week you can comply, no problem. And because, to Scottie's point, with metal fatigue, the very next week you're non-compliant with a driver. And there's no one there to test it. So then what happened to Rory, you go a month down the road, you get another test, and all of a sudden you're non-compliant when you were compliant at the Masters, a month prior. So it's one of those things that that definitely, I'm okay with the weekly testing. Obviously, these guys don't have to, they've got extra heads everywhere at their manufacturers, so they can get one wherever they want, and it's going to look it might look a little different, feel a little different. And I know when you fall in love with a driver head, even the newer driver heads, one to the next with these guys, because their feels are so ingrained, they might not like a certain head, which is why we have backup heads. It's a backup for a reason. And I remember that from my days playing with the older drivers. I like it, but I don't love it. This one I love. So it's a hard thing to get away from when you find a head that you like the look of, you like the feel of, you like the way it comes off the face when it is compliant. And then the player's not going to be able to tell when it goes non-compliant. So this whole thing, especially in regards to the Rory situation, it's a non-issue for me.
Geoff, is there an answer to all this?
I don't know. You have a rule, so I guess you have to test them. I mean, these drivers, the way they make them, it seems like they all comply when they come out of the factory. And then if you hit a lot of shots for them, especially as hard as these guys are hitting them, eventually they thin out. I don't think I've ever had any thin out too much, but and they sort of go across the line that they've drawn in the sand. I mean, I don't know. I think you have to do it because otherwise, there might be ways of using a driver for a long time and have to go further and further. But in practical terms, when it crosses the line, it's not going any different. Scottie wouldn't have noticed that it was going any further, and he probably didn't even notice that the one he used this week was any different. If you have a rule, I guess you have to police it. It's just whether logistically they can make it work. Yeah, and do 150 drivers a week. It sounds like a lot, but I don't know how long it takes to test and to go to everyone's bag and grab their driver and test it every single week. It sounds quite cumbersome. So I don't know what the actual answer is. And on the transparency thing, I mean, maybe just a bit of education. And this issue probably this week is probably helping the golf public understand that this is not anything that the golfers are trying to do. This is just something that naturally happens to a driver. I think a bit of transparency, maybe to just some education. It's like, look, this isn't trying to bend the rules. This is just using the driver that your manufacturer gives you, and you use it for a long time, and this happens. I don't know if there's a really good answer to this, but I think what we saw this week is probably not the best way, where the rumors start on the internet that someone's had a dodgy driver. I think there's probably a better way to handle that.
All right, couple minutes left here, folks, and we'll wrap it up. This has been awesome with all three of you, and we very, very much appreciate your time. Geoff, I'm just going to stay with you. Your thoughts on Jon Rahm in the wake of his finish with a bogey, double bogey finish on Sunday?
Yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, I think it was the difference between how Scottie played those last 5 holes and how Jon played those last 5 holes, even on Saturday. He really was right there, Jon. He looked good. He wasn't missing a shot. Got a bit unlucky on 14 with his bounce and didn't get it up and down. Didn't birdie 15 after 2 good shots. And I think the wind came out of his sails a little bit, and that pin on 16 was brutal. I mean, I didn't see many people have too much success on 16, and then we know what 17 and 18 are like. So I think the wind was out of his sails a little bit. So I think you can sort of, the score he ended up on is a little bit of an aberration. I mean, to me, he looked like the second best player there. And he looked the only one capable of getting it done. If Scottie wasn't going to get it done, he looked like a major winner to me on Sunday for a big patch of that round until 16, or till 14, really. I thought he played really well. I think we're all sort of trying to come up with reasons why he's not winning majors now, because he's gone to live, because we all want to go that way and say it's the wrong thing to do. But he still looks an amazing player to me. He looks really good. These things are really hard to win. Scottie Scheffler's like a once in a generational sort of guy who's closing out tournaments the way he's doing. I think Jon's game looks sound. His motivation looks high. And I wouldn't read too much into the score over those last 3 holes, because, as I said, I think disappointing not birding 14 and 15. And then those last 3 holes, as we talked about all week last week, It's the hardest place in the world to get in the house. And he, as I said, I think the wind was out of his sails a little bit. And once they are on the green mile, I think you've got to have issues.
All right, so Arron, we've got about 20 seconds for you here. Bryson DeChambeau heading into the U.S. Open said he was baffled leaving Quail Hollow. He's trying to figure out Bryson here is a difficult thing to do. Do you feel he's closer or farther from his goal?
Oh, I got the hardest question of the bunch. I have yet to figure out Bryson. I don't know that anybody has figured out Bryson. I think that's why he's such a great watch. I think that Bryson is the opposite of Scottie Scheffler, and I think he needs to put a little more Scheffler in his game, quite honestly. Rory did it and was successful. Rory talked about it openly. Simplifying. He simplified. I think Bryson needs to simplify.
All right, Emilia, we'll finish with you. Just seconds left here with the U.S. Open. Give me one storyline.
Rory, it sets up well for him. I'm really excited for Oakmont. I can't wait. It's going to be such a difficult golf course and test for these players. Carnage is what we love at a U.S. Open. We got it at Pinehurst last year, and I expect it again this year at Oakmont.